It's as simply put as this. She was the Lisa Leslie, the Diana Taurasi, the Caitlin Clark, all before any of them stepped on the court, or in some cases were actually born. And in the words of my broadcast partner, she was straight gangsta on the hardwoods. And we are fortunate enough that she is our next guest on the Breakthrough Chronicles. Cheryl Miller, the one, the only, the Hall of Famer. I could go down the accolades, but we'll be here a while. So how are you, my friend?
You know what, Kevin Ray, you haven't changed a bit. Still handsome. I don't know who you're working with, but I love the gangster. I love that. I would have never thought that I had kind of a thug life, but look, I'm one of many. There were so many, from Ann Myers, Nancy Lieberman. I mean, it just Lynette Woodard. They paved it. They laid that. I'm just one of many.
Well, you say that, and it's funny because I feel fortunate. Had Annie here on the show and talking about the first with her and the first with you, and we're on the heels now of some incredible firsts for the WNBA. Caitlin Clark, you know all the headline that have followed this young lady. You had a chance to connect with her in her first trip to LA, and as somebody who achieved so many firsts, A, do you find it a little surreal? Do you kind of find yourself going through it again almost for her? And what advice, if any, did you share in that meeting with Caitlin? Because I know that she spoke very highly of you, got great respect for you, but you had a chance to see, well, her first win in the WNBA there in LA a while back.
I had the opportunity and pleasure of meeting Caitlin 2 years ago when she won the Honda award as the top female athlete. And that's a rarefied award to win. I mean, it's one thing to be the designated for women's basketball, for women's volleyball, but to win it, as the overall best athlete, collegiate athlete, was a huge feat. So I spent some time just more so on the peripheral and watching her interact. And the one thing that I said to her, and she was heading into her senior year, was have fun. No matter all the static, just make sure you find that quiet place. And I had that same conversation with Juju. But after her win in Los Angeles, heavy as a crown that she's wearing right now.
Right.
And it wasn't something that she self-anointed herself. It's something that's been placed on her head. And I hope people understand that. But it's everything that she's dealing with, the weightiness. And I saw that first win can be so shedding of some of that weight, some of that volume.
Right.
And I gave her the biggest hug that I could. And when she saw me, she was like, "Oh man, finally somebody I see that's on my side."
Right, they can relate.
She was getting hit with everything left and right, and I just said, I hugged her. I said, "I'm so proud of you." I go, savor this. Use this as a formula. I said, but keep being you. I said, no matter what, keep being you. And then she thanked me, and then I bounced. And what I'm trying to, and Annie did this for me, and I didn't understand it at the time. Nancy imparted her wisdom. I didn't understand it. I accepted it, but I didn't understand it. Now I do. Now I get it. I can't imagine, Kevin Ray, what these kids are dealing with the social media and the attention. I don't know if I would have been able to handle it. Seriously. I was too much of a temperamental human being to be able to handle this type of visit.
Well, and there is the assumption from the people who don't live in that world. There's an assumption that, being the first and being the best and being, the top in your field is it's all great. It's all good. How how did you navigate that? As you point out, it
Mhm.
came at a time, long before cell phones. There was no TikTok, no Snapchat, no
Mhm.
X. But how did you navigate that? Was it the family that you had? Was it your friends? Like who were the core that helped you navigate those times?
It was definitely my family and my mom and dad, especially my dad. He and I'll never and Kevin, I'll never forget this. I was 13 years old, in Riverside, California, and the Press Enterprise was our LA Times. And I was on the front page of the sports page, and the lines were, "She's 13 and she can play." And I thought I had made it. And at 13, it
Right.
started, was, she's this, she's that, and I can do this, and I can do that. I'm like, wow, 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 everybody loves me. And my dad at the end of the night came in and he said, look, he goes, and it's your choice. You can believe everything that you've just read, but just remember there's a flip side to that, because not everybody is going to say all these wonderful things, and you're not going to be able to live up to all these wonderful things, and that you're going to have your valleys. Now, are you going to listen to the valley, or you're just always going to listen to the praise? And I got part of it, but it wasn't until I got older that if I'm going to believe all the wonderful things, then I have to believe the not so wonderful things. And that was the eternal journey of just learning to find that balance and to surround myself with people who weren't just yes people, but people who were going to give me, the hard talks at times.
Right. And in addition to that, from those words of wisdom from your father, how much of just living in a competitive household like you did. I mean, you had a couple of brothers who are also pretty solid at their particular sports. So, did that competitive fire come from dad, come from mom and dad, and then how much of that fire from your siblings
Yeah.
helped
Well,
also keep you grounded?
well, mom and dad can be, blamed for the creation of the Millers. Okay. So I was blessed with two older brothers, Saul Jr. and Daryl, Reggie just a year, and then my baby sister who's 4 years younger. And it was humbling living in my household because you could go to bed being the hero or you would go to bed being the goat. Just
Right.
depending on what day, who got you in, whether it was ping pong, basketball, baseball, sprints, football, flag football, every known ball, sport, hand, athletic thing. It could have been Monopoly. It could have been trouble. But in the household of the Millers, at the dinner table was the bragging rights. And sometimes you had it and you feasted well, and then sometimes it was really, woo, you had your rear end handed to you. But it was that honest competition, and really forged how to be a team, how to be a good teammate, how to be a good sister, how to not be a good sister at times, how to learn how to communicate, articulate yourself, and it all started from my family unit. To be honest, and thank you for pointing that out and helping me navigate that. Thank you.
Well, it just it always strikes me, and this is where you will oftentimes saying is speaking of myself, like you come off as like the old man, get off my lawn, but you I think back to those times before the phone, and here you were and are with all the basketball accolades that you've gotten, but you just rattled off all these different sports and games and things that you competed in, and I think that's one of the things that has gotten lost, unfortunately, because there's so much of a laser focus on only one sport, and that the battle, the competition, but the camaraderie from your family and how that made you into this incredible talent on the basketball court.
I think the only regret, looking back at when I was growing up in my younger days, and the formative years for me were 5 to 14 to 16 when I was playing everything. And my only regret was football. And my mom specifically told my dad, um, because I was outside and we had neighbors and they got to play Pop Warner football. So they're coming over, and number one, I love the sound of the cleats, on the
Right.
concrete. The
On the
click, click,
concrete.
click.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like, oh, I like this. Then they come out with the pads, and I'm like, okay. And then the helmet, and you can hit people. Now, mind you, my two older brothers, I'm watching them play football. I'm like, this is what I want to do. I want to be a football player. So we're all lining up, acting like we're on a football team. I put on the, no pads, but just a helmet and lining up. And one of Jimmy, they're our family friends, Jimmy, Jerry, Jeff, and Randy, they were boys. And one gets past the ball, and I'm coming around watching and emulating my brother, Daryl. And I'm being a lineman, and I caught him with the helmet, and my mom's watching this whole thing. And she runs out. She's like, that's it? That's it, baby. Take that helmet off. You're going to kill somebody. You're going to kill somebody. So I'm trying, Kevin, I'm in tears at the dinner table. I'm like, why, Mom? Everybody else can play. Reggie didn't want any parts of football. It was a little too physical. It was a little, But I wanted to play, but my mom was scared, literally scared to death that I was going to kill somebody. So there went my foot. I was the LT. I was the LT before LT.
Well, I was just getting ready to ask, like, if not basketball, what sport? I guess football, but we'll never know.
It was football. I was a great softball player, but my dad was worried because my role model was Pete Rose. And Pete Rose, because of the way that he would dive. So when I'm stealing first base, I'm coming in like Superwoman, flying in like Superman. That's how I didn't like to slide with my legs. It was, with my head and everything else. So he was tired of me coming home with strawberries all the way up my neck because I was in the grit, in the sand, and, so he killed it.
Oh, that is fantastic.
So basketball, my parents forced me into basketball.
You're like, yeah, she's okay. She's okay on the hardwood. It was just the opponents that paid the price.
Exactly. Yeah. Let's keep the public and everybody else safe.
Well, and when you talk about, you mentioned at the age of 13.
Mm-hmm.
So was that kind of the light bulb for you and even your parents saying, wow, there's like, she's more than just good. Like, she's got a chance to really do something with this. And, I'm always fascinated because, again, this was at a time where, there was no YouTube. So who did you emulate your game after? If anyone, where did your skills and talent, where did they get generated? Was it just as simple as just honing your skills, playing against brothers, sister,
boys, playing against the boys, because at the time I was the only girl that played. There was no other girls on my block or any block for that matter playing basketball, playing sports, or playing at not even a level, but playing the way I love to play. Anything physical. So right. there were no. So that was initially my training ground were boys, and I remember getting a glimpse of I believe it was the '76 Olympic team that Ann Myers was on, and them winning a silver medal. And I'm like, I'll be doggone. There are women out there, they're winning a medal, and I'm realizing, and they're playing at this level, representing their country. Bam, that's it.
So that became your bullseye, your target.
That's my target. That's where I want to be. And then I find out and realize that Ann Myers, UCLA. I get a chance to watch her play. My dad takes me to a couple games, and here's this woman with knee pads on, dishing the ball out. Her and Anita Ortega, dishing the ball out. Women flying up and down the court. Anything within arm's reach or not, she's diving on the floor. And I'm like, just the passion she played with, I could identify with.
Right.
Now there's this camaraderie, there's a sisterhood, that there's other women. And I find out that my parents, who was always in the back of my mind, how are we going to be able to afford her going to college? And now we can get a scholarship. Basketball could be that avenue for her
Right.
to pay for her education. Come on, I was set. Where do I sign up?
Yeah. Well, but yet, as you went through high school and continued to show that you were hands
Mhm.
down the best, you continued to hear kind of the chirping in the background, that, well, but she can do this well, but she's not this, she's not that.
Mhm.
Take us back to the legendary 105-point night where maybe you quieted 99% of those critics.
They're I think every athlete can attest to this, where you wake up feeling different. Um, Body just, you're eating your Cheerios a little faster, a little more efficient. Cheerio, there's no O's dropping in the milk. You're catching everything.
Everything's in
And
rhythm.
everything's in rhythm. The right song comes on. You back in the day, you had your Walkman. Kids don't remember the Walkman. You had your little cassette tapes you put in, click, little, and just bouncing, bopping, feeling it. And I just remember my first steal, which is normal. Most of my points, a lot of people don't realize that a lot of my points came off of steals and defense and blocks, and not only blocking, but learning how to block and tip to open areas where I was quick enough to get it and then finish it at the other end. And a player jumped in front of me, and I'll be the first one to admit, I play with one arm. That was my right. Anything with my left was just a guide hand or just a quick back, to the left to set up, but get it back to the right. Hit a crossover and finish at the rim with my left, which I'd never done. And I'm like, holy smokes. And this was in the first quarter. I go, now this is crazy. Now people who are my teammates, if they miss the ball, I normally would always get the offensive rebound, but now I'm just tipping the ball in. I'm being able to catch it, mid drip off the rim and just feel my hand literally like over the rim and just tapping it in. And my assistant coach, Gene Coach, who's a good friend of the family, he's kind of looking at me, at halftime, and I'm warming up and I come and sit down. And he's like, hey, do you know how many points you have? And I'm like, no. And he goes, sure, you got 52 or something like that. I'm like, I got what? I thought I might have, 30, 35. He's like, you're looking at 50 plus right now. I'm like, holy smokes. I said, I could do some damage. So Kev, it was like everything was falling. And this was before the 3-point line. There was no 3-point line.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, that's what a lot of people, if they
No,
don't take the time to look at what
no.
year and
Hey, do the math. The 3-point was an old fashioned and one. It was just an and one. That was your 3 points there, dog. And so yeah, so I was more of a back to the basket type of player because I was in the post.
right.
So I wasn't getting it done on the perimeter. Everything was in the post or at the free throw line or steals. And so
Had to feel like an out of body experience in many ways. I mean,
I didn't realize that I was that close to breaking. I think the record at the time was 100 points. It was 100 points. And our gym is packed like it always was, and people are going crazy. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? And now I'm hearing she's at 80. And I'm like, and now I'm driving like, okay, I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna get to 100.
right.
So I eventually get to 104. The other team, God bless them, Norte Vista, who canceled all the games for the rest of the year. Coach sits me down, and he goes, you have 100, 104 points. It was 105, no, 105 points. And I go, what? And he goes, yeah. He goes, but that's it, because there was 2 minutes to play. And I'm like, let me play the last
Still
2 minutes.
to play, and you had
Come on, let me just play the last 2 minutes. And he kind of points to the other end. And I look, and I'm like, yeah, that's. What are you doing? Just interjecting yourself. Boy, go sit down.
special
Anyway,
guest appearance.
yeah, our special guest appearance are my houndages. But yeah, I didn't play the last 2 minutes, and I just remember in the middle of the crowd, and I'm like, I did it, and I'm holding my jersey. I did it. My teammates are around me, and I'm saying I did it, but I didn't understand what I was saying. I did it. I didn't realize that I had accomplished that
Right.
until it went. It for us. This was our viral because it went national. So
Right.
all the
Right.
national outlets. So that was my viral moment, so to speak.
And as the story goes, created quite a topic of conversation with brother Reg.
That poor guy never he couldn't catch a break. Well, Reggie and I played, high school. If we were at home, the boys were on the road. We were always playing opposite. Obviously,
Right.
For back in the day, we would have had to start early in order to squeeze in the men and the girls, the boys and the girls. But yeah, we got home. I couldn't wait, and he was already home, and we kind of met. I don't know if it was in the kitchen or at the front, and I'm like, Reggie, guess what? Guess what? And he's like, no, 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 me first, me first. I said, okay, go ahead. He's like, Cheryl, hey, I started and I killed it. And I'm like, get out of here. What'd you do? He said, I had, at 36. I'm like, Reg. So I'm hugging him. I'm like, bring it in here. Reggie, congratulations. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. He goes, so what did you do? And my dad's kind of like in the background, kind of smirking and like, and he's like looking at my dad, and then he's looking at me, and he's like, well, what did you do? And I said, oh, thank you. Yeah, you know the story. Get down. Anyway, sorry about that. Anyways, he's like, well, how many did you have? More than 40? Like a little more. Reggie's like 50. And then now he's starting to get pale in the face.
Right.
And I said, a little more than that. He goes, well, how many did you have? I said, 105. He goes, you what? He goes, I said 105. He's like, Mom! And he screams, I can't win. I can't win. 105. And now he was devastated. My dad and I are laughing. He's sick. My mom's like coming over and giving me a kiss. And yeah, I ate well that night. I ate well that night.
Well, and I think about that, the one thing that I keep hearing you say is your mom and dad, and when we're that age, we're never wise enough or smart enough to really understand the wisdom that they are deploying. Because look, it would have been, and I'm sure you look back at this now and however many years later where it kind of hit you, but it would have been easy considering the competitiveness of your family, having situations and moments like that for little jealousies to arise, and just the role of your parents, I played such key, figures in allowing you all to grow and have those moments, but at the same time, as you pointed out earlier, keeping you and giving you a level of humility that would
Right.
serve all of you
Right.
well.
Well, I mean, thank my parents, and God love them. They raised us the best way they can. Did they always get it right? No. Um, but they did what they thought was right for the family. But I think the greater credit should go towards Reggie, being able to accept that his big sister is receiving all this attention, and Reggie was no slouch in high school.
Well,
And but he really had to work hard. He still had schools who were very interested in him, but like, like me, we wanted to stay close to our parents. We wanted to stay home. Um, but for him to always be supportive, and that's for my two older brothers as well, who kind of like forged both of us with this mindset and mentality of being the best and honing our skills. So I give Reggie a lot of credit, to be able to assume that position and then excel, and then it flipped because he became the Miller once he got into the NBA, and he's legendary in his right.
Right. Well, don't sell yourself short. You were still the Miller, still are.
I had a
Um,
nice run. I had a nice run.
indeed you did, and um, all these years later, the Women of Troy, the documentary came out in
Wow.
21, and for those who were able to see it, witness it, be a part of it, something to behold. How rewarding has it been for you and all the incredible, talented women that were on that team to see that work and those accomplishments finally recognized all these years later, and the what those people mean to you? And
Hmm.
I say people because they weren't just players; they were teammates. They are
Yeah.
they are individuals that shared significant parts of your life with one another.
Oh, thank you for saying that and setting up that question, because I think the first word that comes to mind for me is gratitude. Um, and I learned so much um, from this film, from this documentary on us. I had no idea that Cynthia Cooper was going through what she went through with the death of her brother. I didn't know that the reason why she had left school was to support her family, her mom. I did not know these things. And it gave me such a greater love and respect for her, because we butted heads a lot. I didn't like her, and I'm sure I wasn't her favorite, person. And we were like that. It was so evident in practice. It was so evident in the locker room. But there was something about us on the floor that was magic. There was something about us as a team that was forged so early. The McGee twins, and it was so much in Rhonda and all my teammates, learning about them and their struggles and their journeys, that we really didn't have. I felt that once I got to SC, the ball was rolled out, and we got bits and pieces of each other, and we got to know one another better as the season went on. And the wonderful, I think the wonderful journey for all of us was that we went through it, through the peaks and the valleys, together. May not have been perfect, but as an imperfect team, we got the job done, and we turned it on the court, magic. And off the court, we learned how to not just tolerate each other, but to learn how to love one another, even in our differences.
Well, and I always find it interesting to Cheryl, and to some degrees, even today,
Hmm.
that
Thank you.
the
Thank you for saying today. Today, I this team doesn't exist in the standard of today. And again, all the social outlets and people viewing in and having their input and say and everything else, how teams survive in this day and age and forge that bond as a team
right,
across the board is dang near impossible. Dang near impossible.
yeah, I always find it interesting because you describe what you were all going through individually, but then as a team, it's like you're trying to carve out your space. You've got this competitive fire in you. You want to be the best. Cynthia wanted to be the best,
Mhm.
and I always find it interesting and um, humorous in some ways in that people want women to compete, but they want them only to compete kind of quietly, if you know what I mean. Like, dude over here, I don't want to see you compete the same way that that a man competes in many ways,
And
and it,
celebrated. And
it
celebrated.
and so yeah, and celebrated. And it felt like that, especially at that time, you guys were all fighting, almost trying to deal with double identities.
Hmm.
Being this competitive bulldog on the floor, but yet you're supposed to act a certain way off the floor in front of cameras and you know out in the
And,
public.
and being perfectly honest, you have to throw in the other component, and it's race. Especially at USC,
Right.
being a predominantly all black female team, and how to integrate and assimilate and be a part of a student body that's predominantly white and come from substantial means in which a lot of us didn't. So there was a lot on our plate socially to deal with, but again, we had a great coach, Linda Sharp, whose door was always open and who wasn't afraid to tackle, and may not have had all the answers, but if she didn't, she knew where to go, and was always there for us, and that helped. She was the buffer, and she was the glue. And we had great, I had great teammates who stepped in, who may not have received a lot of the spotlight, but man, they were the glue. Like Juliet Robinson, she was our politician, she was the mayor, she was our president, and she was the one that told us, before you step on the floor, check it at the door. You check your egos, your pride, whatever's going on, whether you passed or failed, an exam or whatever. Don't bring it in here. This is all about work. This is our workplace, and it suited us well.
You compete, you win at the highest level there collegiately. You do it with this group of women that you get to share that honor with. It is the one bitter part of sports that every athlete may or may not encounter, but injuries.
Hmm.
For you, the injuries clearly robbed you of what long-term basketball could have provided.
Right.
How did you cope with the injuries? Who helped you deal with those kind of setbacks? Because when you're used to playing at such a high level and something like that robs you of the skills you have, that's a lot to deal with, especially when the game in many ways was just beginning to take off, in
Yeah.
terms of national relevance and maybe the possibilities that were in front of you.
That was obviously that was the first adversity that I have ever dealt with, um, and it was mine to deal with. Um, Mom and Dad couldn't help me with the, and when you say robbed, that's such a great description of how I felt, because I was at the top of my game, top of the food chain. May not have known the direction that I was going to go in. I know I had my degree in broadcasting, but I was ready to play overseas and then wait to see, because there were rumors of, a professional league. So I could, bide my time by playing overseas. But once that was taken away, I was scared to death, Kevin, because without basketball, who am I? Who
Right.
is Cheryl? So, not knowing what I was feeling and going through, I do now, it was a great dark depression. And it was in a sense that, what was my identity? What was I going to do next? And there was no one that I could talk to, share with. And it just was, it really honestly, I think people might think that, it's a cop up, but I had to turn to God. And I was raised in a strong Christian home, and that was primarily from my mom taking us to church every Sunday, and every vacation Bible school we were there. So there was always a foundation of God in my life. And so I really had to rely on that, and rely on the fact that whatever direction I was going to go in, he had to help me with. I needed help, and that got me through and into broadcasting. And I remember my first couple of jobs with Prime Ticket, Kevin, I was horrible. And when I mean horrible, dude, I mean horrible.
Do
Like
you still have those tapes? Have you gone back and watched
oh
any?
man, I'm sure they have to be floating out there. And I was everything. I was a cautionary tale of what not to do on air. The whole earpiece. I didn't understand that there was somebody talking into my ear. I thought it was God. I thought it was voices. I thought there was mental health issues that I was dealing with while the camera was on. They're like, "What do you want me to say?" And toss it to who? So I'm having these conversations with my producer on air. It was funny as heck. But no, I was terrible, and it took me at least 3 to 4 years to finally get my chops into broadcasting. And there was a lot of rough moments, a lot of funny moments, a lot of tearful moments, but I got through it. It was a rough showing, but I finally got through it.
Well, and how much of your, I guess, kind of athletic experience did you, in terms of practicing, preparation, or how
Yeah.
much of those did you kind of eventually kind of maybe have an aha moment where like, you know what? At the end of the day, I got to get reps, just
Right.
like I'm getting reps on the court.
Hmm.
At what point did that kind of kick in and say, it's just a matter of kind of tweaking my mindset? I'm not, at the free throw line trying to knock down 500 free throws now I am doing X to try to improve as a broadcaster.
There were three people who really helped me turn the corner from a broadcasting standpoint. The first person was, and God rest his beautiful soul, and was one of the best, as you may remember, was Keith Jackson, who I had the opportunity, who was great. Oh,
Oh,
Nelly!
Nelly.
Oh, Nelly, the big uglies. And I had the opportunity to work with him because I was a sideline reporter for college football. And I was struggling. And I remember him, calling him from the hotel room. I said, Keith, can I talk to you? And he's like, come on down. And his wife, Trudy, always traveled with him. And he just simply said, he's like, GD Cheryl, you're GD Cheryl Miller. You're 6'2", beautiful black woman. GD Cheryl Miller. Just act like it. Just fake it till you feel better. And that was it. And then I had Ann Myers, who was doing college basketball, and watching her, and she gave me helpful tips. So I started reaching out to people. But the person who helped me, because I couldn't get over this, Kevin, was I knew what I wanted to say, but I couldn't get it out fast enough. I couldn't articulate it. And it was Bill Walton. And Bill Walton said, I struggled, Cheryl, for years, Cheryl. I struggled for years with stuttering. But I had to slow it down, Cheryl. You see what I'm saying? I had to slow it down. And I'm like, okay, Bill, so how did you slow it down? He goes, when I was driving, every time I would see a sign, hey, Ventura Boulevard, only 2 miles, I'll make a left and I'll be right. So he would read signs when he was traveling in the passenger seat, or when he was walking down the aisles. Oh, bread for $1.25. Okay, is it wheat? Oh, or grain? And and I started doing that, and lo and behold, that stuff worked. And now all of a sudden I'm seeing, okay, so and so is passing to this and passing to that. Well, God, I am Cheryl Miller. Hey, I can ask these questions because now the athletes understand where I'm coming from. I'm not doing, well, how did you feel? No, you know what? You missed that, Chippy. I saw you miss that. Get on yourself a little bit. What were you thinking when you were going down for that next shot? And lining your feet up, and they're like, oh, she knows what. Cheryl. Okay, Cheryl, well, let me tell you what really, and the coaches couldn't BS me. So yeah,
Right.
my training off the court, on the court, really did translate into my broadcasting. And the people that I mentioned, helped me make that transition finally click in my head. So those aha moments happened every time I stepped on the floor.
God bless his soul.
Crazy.
The Bill Walton School of Broadcast, and it turns
It
into
was, Cheryl, when I was reading, I was like, but he was right. That stuff actually works. So, thank you, Bill. God bless your soul.
oh, that is outstanding. Let's jump back to your coaching career for a moment. WNBA.
Yes, yes.
You made it to the pro ranks. You
Hmm.
get there as a coach. Um, greatest memory and any regrets when you look back at the coaching career and say, man, I wish I would have, wish we could have.
Greatest moment was our first game. I had the pleasure of coaching two of the most dynamic. No, you need to get down. I'm in the middle of my story. Two of the most dynamic players in Jennifer Gillum and Michelle Timms. And we had a crowd, I believe either as 12 or 13,000, something incredible, sold out arena. And I just remember just grabbing the microphone and just wanting to thank the fans as an afterthought because I was blown away because I didn't know what to expect.
Right.
And here we are. I have a microphone, and I remember saying something to the extent that they said that you would never come. They said that this could never happen. But I'm standing here in front, in the middle of this floor, thanking 14,000 fans, screaming fans. Thank you for making an old woman's dream come true. You truly are the X Factor. And that's how the X Factor came about. And dropped the mic and walked off and standing ovation. And I'm looking at Jennifer and I'm like, can you believe this? Can you believe this? So that was my fondest. And if there was any, I have no true regrets except I wish I would have been more prepared as a head coach. And I wish I would have assembled my coaching staff a little better and trusted them more to help me with the, not just the X and O's, but the ins and outs on how to be an effective leader.
And that's probably one of the greatest challenges, I think, for players who are so elite at their game, whether it's basketball, football, whatever. But because I feel like in many ways, the way that individuals and athletes like yourself, it's almost like you are in the matrix. You see the game, the floor,
Yes.
in ways that common
Right.
people do not. And I feel like that is oftentimes the biggest challenge for elite athletes who go into coaching, because there's almost like this assumption is like, well, why didn't you see that? I mean, it was right in front of you.
Right.
It was in front of, it was in front of you, but it wasn't, they did not see it that way.
And I will say that I had a reprieve on that because I had a little stint of coaching 3 years at USC. So, and that's humbling in itself because that's hard to articulate that to a college kid and expecting a college kid to get that matrix part, to understand, well, you didn't see this and you weren't anticipating that. So that was hard. But once you get to the W, these are professional athletes. So they understand when you got on them, hey, come on now, that weak side, that's on you. You got to handle this, or hey, it does this team and your team, it does your teammates and us no good if you drop 36, but you're giving up 40. So you got to tighten it up on the defensive end. So it was easier in that respect. But the challenge for me was keeping my ego out of it and being and having that mind of service and humility. That was the battle, and that was the challenge for me, was to try to interject and understand this is their time. This is not about you, Cheryl. This is their time. Right. So that was always the battle for me.
Jumping back on the broadcast side, what did it, I think from a viewer standpoint, we saw it, we felt it, but what did it mean to be able to work alongside Reggie after all these years, growing up in the same household, competing in the same game, and now here you are, your teammates, in ways that I'm sure certainly as a 14, 15-year-old, neither of you could have imagined. What did that mean for you, and what are some of the best memories that you take away from your time at Turner TNT NBA TV, getting to work with Reg?
Uh, two things stand out. Is being a sideline reporter while Reggie was playing, especially during the playoffs, was scary because because every time that, and especially I'll never forget this. It was George Karl, and when he was coaching the Bucks, Milwaukee, and that was always going to be heated with Ray Allen, and it was just a great battle. But it was tough for me because I was on the floor, courtside, and Reggie would get hot, and Reggie would start looking at me because he would wait to see where I am, and then he would do this, and now I got everybody in the stands want to kick my behind because Reggie is on fire. He's on fuego. So I'm the reason. So now George Karl, is like, pissed at me. So he gets in the meeting and talks about, I think it's unfair to have Cheryl Miller on the sideline. It just gets a brother hype. And I'm like, so now I got people, game 5, game 6, throwing beers at me. And I'm like, come on, dude. But I loved it. I loved it because I would have to watch him, and people, as soon as he made like a big bucket, they would automatically turn, and I'm supposed to have a poker face, like, but underneath the table, I'm like,
You gotta be right.
Get him, Reggie. And then it comes full circle where it's, Kevin Harlan and Reggie, and before that it was Reggie and Marv Albert. Now, Cheryl, let's go down to Cheryl's on the sideline. And I'm like, thank you, Marvelous. And then Reggie's there, and I could always somehow tie something to him. And I'm like, that's it. So Reggie, what do you think? And he's like, well, Cheryl, this, and it was like, cool. I'm talking to Reggie. We're getting paid. We're on television.
Right.
Who'd have thunk it? Like you said, you couldn't, there's no way in the world I could have predicted, or Reggie and I could have predicted that this is how our life journey together would have taken us.
What is the greatest gift that the game has given you?
Whoo! Never been asked that question. Great question. Wow. People talk about it, and I don't quite know if this is it, and I never thought about it. A legacy. Basketball and women's basketball. From the time I was able to dribble it and get that ball close to the rim and then eventually in, to an Olympic gold medal, to 2 national championships, to countless Hall of Fames. It's given me my legacy.
That's pretty powerful stuff right there. And in turn, what's the greatest gift you think you have given the game?
I'm not going to say in past tense, but what I want to continue to do, what we spoke about earlier about Caitlin Clark, is it's my job now to pay it forward wherever I can, and to be of service, and to do it with humility. I never offer up my opinions because I don't like people who are opinionated and always throw it out there, or my advice. If someone seeks it, Cheryl, what can I do? I do everything, on the down low. But my gift to the game is my experience and knowledge off the court. They can handle their business on the court. They can handle their business financially, and I'm so excited. I love Angel Reese, and she's unapologetic about, who she is and how she conducts herself.
Right.
And there's a lot of other women, former players now, who are being sought out for their advice and their wisdom. And I just like to be that cautionary tale of, please don't do. I'm begging you, don't do.
I can tell you what not to do.
Think before sin. Please think before sin. And yeah, and to keep things in perspective. And I think the greatest thing that I do best, and I hope all players understand this, please don't take yourself so seriously that you can't laugh at the dumb SHIT stuff you do.
Right.
Please don't. Be able to laugh yourself, take the piss out of yourself, and move on, because that way, if you can laugh at yourself, it doesn't matter people laughing at you, because don't take yourself so seriously, and you really get over yourself. That's my gift is, come on, lady, just get over yourself. You're special, but not so.
Yeah. That's your dad's voice in the back of your head talking to you right there, right?
That's life's wisdom talking to me too. Trust me. You always want to be on the favorable end. But again, you know this. You learn more from your mistakes than you do your successes.
Right. You'd mentioned the phrase "pay it forward" in our final segment here. What we like to do is give our guests the opportunity to pay it forward here on the program, which is showcase any charity, initiative, cause that you want to promote. And it may be something that our viewers, listeners are familiar with, maybe something completely new, but is there a charity, a cause, initiative that you're a part of that's special to you that we can showcase?
You're actually I'm thanking you for doing this. There's one that I'm a partner with, and it's called Breaking Barriers. And it is, and I have to read this because it is a employee training and development video to help businesses, small colleges, universities, and especially in this day and age with our client, with the content, so I don't leave anything as it's bias training, harassment training. It's the culture of sensitivity, wellness, health. And at the end of the day, it's a video to help us in our workplaces, how to talk to one another, because the gift of being able to talk and to receive and to have those tough conversations in the workplace to help our employers and employees, bridge that gap on diversity, gender equity, equality, the whole thing in the workplace, especially in our colleges. Let's get it. This program is a how-to and a wellness video of how to have those tough conversations. So Breaking Barriers, Nita Berry, God bless her, and Robert Rowell. You can go on Gmail or Instagram or any of these and look at Breaking Barriers and .com to get a heads up on it. So I appreciate you allowing me to give them a shout out.
Absolutely. That's what we are.
It's a mouthful, and I'm getting my head around it, but man, it's a video that we need in the workplace. So I hope I've done it justice. But I'm a proud owner, a part owner of this company.
Okay, that is fantastic. Well, now we know what is going on post basketball life for Cheryl Miller. In addition to being, so how many doggos do we have?
We have two, and now they want to sleep. 2 animal rescue, and they were supposed to be little small Dachshunds, right? But we didn't know who the pappy was, so I got to do a DNA test because they're about as big as like a mid-sized range, like Dobermans. So, and they're terriers. So they're Doberman, half terriers, half wolf.
You're playing defense in a different kind of way now.
I am now, and I've got the Maury Povich show on here. I'm trying to find who the pappy is. DNA test. Hey.
Oh, listen, it has been so great catching up with you, my friend.
Evan Ray, you are the best, my man. Keep on. Keep keeping on, and thank you for allowing me this time for you and I to just to talk.
Absolutely. Hopefully we'll see you here in the desert sometime soon at a Merc game, okay?
I will be at a Merc game hopefully the next month or so. So I'll be out there.
All right.
Give you a holler.
Thanks for stopping by. Take care.
All right. Take care. God bless you.